Vignette number 4 is based around Mr. Hernandez's second grade classroom. This vignette represents the span of a school week, not just a singular daily lesson plan. The vignette keys on two components of oral language, listening and talking. The class is reading two versions of The Little Red Hen, both by Galdone and Pinky. They're also reading Bread, Bread, Bread by Heyman and Cock-a-Doodle-Doo by Stevens and Crummell. At first glance, these books seem to have little in common. However, Mr. Hernandez incorporates many practices into his lesson that accentuate the connections that lie between these stories. Mr. H uses interactive read-alouds for each of these stories. Interactive read-alouds activates necessary background knowledge prior to reading the story. This helps the students make meaningful connections with the story and allows them to hypothesize or predict what will happen. This creates grand conversations and discussions between peers and the teacher. Communicating and listening are incorporated into these activities, and they all go along with the book. Mr. H uses 4 types of listening to help his students get the full effect of each story. One strategy that he has his students use is discriminatory listening. This basically means that students are identifying sounds and patterns. By the second grade, students have a good idea of what sound each letter makes. But in The Little Red Hen, they go a little bit deeper than just the sound. There's consistency through the stories. In the writing, one word has the same font, one word has the same color, and one word is an animal. For example, the black horse. The is the bigger font size, black is the color, and horse is the animal. Next is aesthetic listening. This, in my opinion, is probably the most meaningful experience Mr. Hernandez provided his students within this lesson plan. In this type of listening, students predict, visualize, and make connections. Mr. H had the parents of each student come into the classroom and make or present different types of bread. Students began to understand what bread is and how it is made. Once the students began reading the book about bread, they were already experts. This made comprehending the story much easier for the students since they already knew so much about bread. The most commonly used form of listening among students is efferent listening. This listening strategy is used to understand a message. This type of listening enables students to make meaningful connections to the material, whether it be intertext related or some sort of outside source. Efferent listening helps students gather ideas and stay organized. Students are then able to gather the big idea of the text much easier. Critical listening is an extension of efferent listening. When students listen critically, they are evaluating a message, not just understanding it. To explain further, students tend to debate during this type of listening. It comes in the form of informal competition between ideas, beliefs, opinions, and even hypotheses. Students are able to back up their thoughts by using evidence from the text. This type of listening evokes a constant questioning to oneself. Whether the questions are self-provoked or prompted depends on the situation, text, and the teacher. Mr. Hernandez's lesson revolves around listening and talking, which are parts of oral language development. The different types of listening that students and teachers partake in turn, allow them to be able to communicate more effectively. Vignette number 4 expresses through example that listening and talking are directly related and have great influence on one another.